The prayer never left my mouth. That was the part that shook me most later, because I know what I asked God that night. I know I asked it silently. I know no one stood near me. And I know, with everything in me, that the man who stopped me the next morning should not have known a single word of it. But he did, and what he said changed my life. I was not living a dramatic life then, just a tired one. I worked 6 days a week in a small printing shop. The pay was enough to keep food in the house, but not enough to make peace feel easy. Every month felt like a race I was already losing. Rent sat on my chest like a stone. Hospital bills sat beside it. My mother had been sick for months. Not the kind of sickness that kept her in bed every day. Worse in some ways. The kind that looked calm one afternoon, then terrifying by night. One week, she smiled and cooked soup. The next week, she could barely cross the room. The doctors kept changing words. Tests. Results. Concerns. Delays. Every conversation cost money. Every answer led to another question. I stopped telling people the details after a while. Not because I was strong, because I was tired of watching their faces change. First pity, then distance, then the promise they did not mean. We'll be praying. Some did pray. I believe that. But most people just wanted the sadness to pass quickly. They wanted a simple miracle, a neat testimony, something they could smile at by Sunday. That was not what my life felt like. My life felt dim. It felt like carrying a leaking bucket uphill. No matter how hard I tried, I arrived empty. Still, I believed in God. Quietly, carefully. Not the loud kind of faith people post. Not the kind that fills a room. Mine lived in whispers. In tired bus rides. In small breaths before sleep. In those moments when your heart says, Lord, I am still here, even if I do not understand you. That week was especially hard. The landlord had called twice. The pharmacist refused to release another pack of medication without payment. My younger sister kept asking me the same question with her eyes. She was too kind to say it out loud, but I heard it anyway. What are we going to do now? I did not know. And when a man does not know what to do, silence becomes dangerous. Because silence makes room for fear. And fear knows how to speak with confidence. That Thursday evening, I closed the shop later than usual. The owner had traveled, so I locked up alone. The street outside was almost empty. A few buses passed. A woman selling roasted corn fanned smoke into the air. 2 boys argued over a football score near the junction. Everything looked normal. That is what makes me remember it so clearly. Because normal was the last thing I felt. I started walking home to save transport money. It was not a short walk, but I had done worse. My shoes were dusty. My shirt clung to my back. My stomach had that hollow ache that comes when hunger and stress begin to sound alike. Halfway home, I felt the need to stop. Not because I was tired, because something inside me felt heavy and close to breaking. There was a church by the roadside. Small, gated, quiet. No service that night. Just a faint security light near the entrance and a wooden cross mounted above the roofline. I stood outside for a moment. Then I stepped closer to the fence. I did not kneel. I did not raise my hands. I did not speak. I just stood there in the dark, gripping the cold metal bars, and prayed the most desperate prayer of my life without opening my mouth. Lord, I cannot do this anymore. That was how it began. I remember every part of it because I had never prayed like that before. Not with such raw shame. Not with such exhausted honesty. I told him I was afraid. I told him I was angry. I told him I was trying not to drown. Then I said the one thing I had never said to anyone. Not to my sister. Not to my mother. Not even to myself in full daylight. If you are still with me, send someone tomorrow. Not money. Not a sign in the sky. Someone. Someone who does not know me. Someone who will say, do not be afraid. Your house will not fall this month. That was the sentence. Exact. Strange. Childlike almost. I knew it even while praying. Why that sentence? Why those words? I do not know. Maybe because fear had narrowed my world until rent felt bigger than heaven. Maybe because I needed something personal. Something too precise for coincidence. Something my tired mind could not explain away. So I prayed it silently. Then I went home. I told no one. That night, my mother coughed for nearly an hour. My sister cried in the kitchen when she thought I could not hear. I counted what little money remained in my drawer. I checked my phone twice, hoping for a message that did not come. Nothing changed. And when nothing changes after a desperate prayer, the night grows teeth. I barely slept. Morning came gray and dry. I left early for the pharmacy, hoping I could beg for one more day. The streets were already filling with movement. Kiki horns, bicycle bells, vendors arranging oranges in plastic bowls. Life going on, as if my chest was not collapsing inside me. I walked fast, not because I had hope, because I did not. Hope can slow you down. Desperation moves quickly. I had just turned past a mechanic's shed when I heard a voice behind me. "Brother." I kept walking. "Brother," the one in the blue shirt. I stopped. Then I turned. An older man stood near the roadside. Not ragged, not polished, just plain. Faded brown trousers, cream shirt, worn sandals. He held no Bible, carried no bag. His face was the kind you might forget in a crowd. But his eyes were steady, too steady. He walked closer, slowly, like someone careful not to frighten a child. "I am sorry," he said. "I know this is strange." I said nothing. My first thought was that he wanted money. My second was that he had mistaken me for someone else. Then he looked straight at me and said very softly, "Do not be afraid. Your house will not fall this month." The street disappeared. Not literally. But that is how it felt. The sounds thinned. The movement blurred. For one impossible second, it was just me, and that sentence I had buried in silence the night before. My mouth opened, but no words came. He kept speaking. "The Lord said I should tell you He has heard you. He has seen the tears in your house. He said help is already moving. Go home with peace." I stepped backward. I remember that. A full step, because my body reacted before my faith did. I looked around to see who might be watching, who might be laughing, whether this was some cruel performance arranged by a friend. But no one around us cared. A bus sped past. A woman balanced bread on her head. A dog barked at nothing. The world continued. Only mine had split open. "How do you know me?" I asked. He shook his head. "I do not." "Who told you that?" He gave a small smile. Not dramatic. Not proud. Just calm. "I was on my way somewhere else," he said. Then I felt strongly that I should stop and wait here. I almost ignored it. But the instruction became clear when I saw you. My hands started trembling. Not the loud kind. The frightening kind. The kind that begins deep inside your chest. I asked him again if we had met before. He said no. I asked if someone from my church sent him. He said no again. Then he repeated the line. Slowly. Like he wanted no part of it lost. "Do not be afraid. Your house will not fall this month." He touched my shoulder once. Then he started to leave. That was the part that snapped me awake. "Wait," I said. "Please wait." He turned. I wanted to ask 100 things. His name. His church. His number. Why me? Why there? Why now? I wanted to hold on to whatever had just happened and pin it down before doubt came to steal it. Instead, the only thing I managed was this. Did God say anything else? The man looked at me for a long second. Then his face changed. Not dramatically. Just enough for me to feel it. "Yes," he said. "He said the woman in your house will sleep without pain again." I stared at him. I had not mentioned my mother. I had not mentioned any woman. I had not said one word about home. And yet those words landed exactly where my private fear had been living. Before I could speak again, he nodded once and walked away. I followed him for 3 steps. A truck cut between us. Just for a moment. Just long enough to force me back from the road. When it passed, he was gone. I looked left. Nothing. Right. Nothing. No brown trousers. No cream shirt. No slow-moving figure disappearing into morning traffic. Gone. I know how that sounds. I know. Maybe he turned quickly into a side street I did not notice. Maybe shock made me blind. Maybe there is an ordinary explanation that would satisfy a stronger mind. But I am telling you exactly what I saw. Or what I did not see. I reached the pharmacy in tears. Not loud tears. Just those burning ones that keep falling before you realize you are crying. The pharmacist looked at me strangely when I asked for the medication. I was already rehearsing my begging speech when he frowned at his screen. Then he looked up and said, "Your balance has been cleared." I blinked. "What?" He turned the monitor slightly, as if I might understand it better by looking. Someone paid this morning. All of it. I asked who. He shrugged. No name was left. I stood there frozen. He handed me the medicine. My fingers could barely close around it. I went home almost running. My sister opened the door before I knocked. Her face was wet. For one terrible second, I thought I was too late. I thought the promise had come just in time to mock me. Then she grabbed my arm. She slept, she whispered. She slept all night. I stared at her. She did not cry once, my sister said. She woke up asking for food. I walked into my mother's room. She was sitting up, not twisted in pain, not breathing through clenched teeth, not wearing that thin, exhausted look that had become normal. She looked tired, yes, but different, lighter. When she saw me, she smiled in a way I had not seen for weeks. I had the sweetest sleep, she said. It felt like someone stood by my bed. I had to turn away, because once one impossible thing happens, you may still resist it. Twice, and the heart begins to crack. 3 times, and you know you are no longer standing inside ordinary coincidence. That afternoon, the landlord came. I was ready for humiliation. Instead, he shifted awkwardly near the door and said he had decided to give us more time. His brother had called from another city that morning and unexpectedly sent him money. So, he was not under pressure anymore. He could wait till next month. Then he left. Just like that. No shouting. No threats. No final warning. My house did not fall that month. Not by rent. Not by sickness. Not by fear. And that should have been enough. More than enough. The kind of testimony people share with loud music and tears in church. But God was not done. 3 weeks later, my mother returned for another review. Some of the earlier concerns no longer showed clearly. The doctor, careful with his language, said her condition had improved unexpectedly. He used medical words. He used professional caution. He did not call it a miracle. He did not have to. I already knew when the healing started. Not in the hospital. Not in the medicine. By a roadside. Through the mouth of a stranger who should not have known my silent prayer. For a long time, I focused on the wrong wonder. I kept thinking the greatest miracle was that a man repeated my private words. It was astonishing, yes. But that was not the deepest part. The deepest part was this. God answered the exact prayer I prayed, but he had already begun moving before I finished praying it. The pharmacy bill was paid the next morning. The landlord's pressure lifted the same day. Peace entered my mother's room that night. Help was already moving. That was the phrase the man used. And years later, it still undoes me. Because how many times have I mistaken silence for absence? How many nights have I thought heaven was delaying, while mercy was already on the road? That stranger knew the prayer I never said out loud. But the greater mystery is that God heard the cry I could not trust myself to speak with sound. That changed the way I pray now. I still ask. I still weep. I still have nights when fear circles the bed like a thief. But I no longer believe silence means nothing is happening. I no longer believe heaven must explain itself before it is working. Sometimes the answer is already walking toward you, while you are still trying to find the courage to ask. And sometimes, when your faith feels too weak to stand, God is kind enough to send a stranger with your own hidden words in his mouth, just so your tired heart can recognize that it has been seen. I never saw that man again. I asked around. No one knew him. I passed that road many times after, slower each time, watching faces, listening to footsteps, hoping I might recognize that calm gaze again. I never did, but maybe that is fitting, because the point was never the man. It was the God who sent him, the God who still hears unspoken prayers, the God who still enters houses that feel one bill away from collapse, the God who still stands beside beds where pain has overstayed its welcome, the God who knows how to answer with precision, not just power, precision. And if you are listening to me now with your own private fear, your own silent request, your own house trembling in ways no one else can see, then hold on to this. Help may already be moving, even now, even here, even before the visible change. If this story reminded you that God still hears the prayers you cannot even say out loud, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to this channel, because some miracles are still waiting to be told.